Welcome, welcome. This is HomeBizStartup.tv and welcome. We're going to call it Season 4. We're going to be talking about getting visible for your home business. So if you're starting running or even growing your home business, you need to be visible. So we're going to be going over some of the ways that you can be visible through my Let's Get Visible show. So I hope you find this of interest because you need to be visible and you need to network and you need to outreach. So let's get visible. Hello. Welcome to the Let's Get Visible show with Jane Gardner, and welcome. Let's see if we get the right slide. Yes, we did. Amazing. So it's the second season of Let's Get Visible. And today we're talking about speaking. You can speak offline or you can speak online, but it's one way to get visible. Last week we gave you some ideas, 21 ideas actually, of places that you can go and speak and get visible. And today we're going to be talking about what to put into your speech. Roughly, we're going to do that. So, here we go, and welcome. I'm Jane Gardner to the Let's Get Visible show, and let's go and get started. We got 15 minutes, so let's go. I'm Jane Gardner. I work with my husband, a structural engineering firm that I have to go to soon. And so we'll just keep going. This is my new slide for the Visibility Broadcasting TV network. I have a new show called Be Your Own Boss TV with Jane Gardner. And I also host the Inspirational Businesswoman show, which is awesome. And we have a few other shows on the Visibility Broadcasting TV on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. So we have been talking about visibility, and I think just because it's important, we're going to talk about how we started out with storytelling and how telling stories will get you your audience and get your audience to grow because they're interested in what you're talking about. So today we're going to skip all the rest of preview of what the previous things we've done. I do want to mention my podcast, Finding Your Purpose TV, on all podcast feeds, on iTunes, Solopreneur Success Strategies, also on iTunes, and HomeBiz Startup TV is actually a video cast on iTunes. So if you haven't tried out a video cast, go look at that one. But anyway, we are going to talk today about what makes a good speech. So we're going to go through this quickly because most of you are interested in speaking. But of course, you need to put together the speech. So first off, you're going to decide on your theme and your goal for your speech, who you're talking to, and then you're going to do research to validate your points in the speech. And it's always great to have all your data and references credible, accurate, and up to date. And of course, they can be books, but of course, they can be on the internet. But just thinking about AI research, you have to make sure you check it for errors because it can sometimes give you some information which a lot of times is not correct. For example, I was designing, I think, a course, and it had, an outline of the course, and then it said, here are some resources, and one of them was Marketing by Jane Doe. Well, I know the name Jane Doe is just an anonymous fake name, and so it was just creating up a title for a book that you could use as a resource. So it's always good to go in and make sure all your research is correct when you're using AI. And of course, reference your sources in case you need to have support with statistics and facts. And academic sources can be reliable. Do not plagiarize, obviously, and acknowledge your resources, whether it's in the transcript of the speech later, or most likely, I don't think people want you to quote resources as you go along. And run your speech document through a content plagiarizing tool like Copyscape to catch any material copied from website pages. So you need to make sure that your speech is persuasive and convincing. So you have to use interesting statistics and studies, which people can go look up if they want to find out about the research. You need to organize your research notes. You can either do it manually with note cards and folders in the old-fashioned way, or you can use Evernote or Notion or other places that you can collect your research and before you put it all together. And of course, cross-referencing your notes to resource for easy reference will be great, especially in your written transcript, because you need to always be factual and true. And of course, you need to appeal to your audience. In order for them to relate to your message, you have to understand their interests, demographics, goals, beliefs, and values. If you're doing a speech on the goldfish life cycle to an audience of marketers, they will not be interested. So you always have to make sure you contact your the person hosting the your summit or your speech and what you're doing, and make sure you know the kind of audience that they have and adapt your speech to that audience. So if they're a golf crowd and they want to talk about golf, then use that in terms of if you were doing a marketing speech. Use a lot of golf terms, and that'll keep their interests. And of course, you have to keep the audience engaged, tell them something new, appeal to their needs and be aware of their opinions. Maybe depending what the speech is, you could get some feedback, get them to raise their hands if they agree or don't agree, or if they have questions, and get the questions at the end. But you need to always make sure your audience does not fall asleep. So you need to make sure that your speech is engaging enough for them. So you need to look at the demographic of the people who are coming to your speech, what their age is, their culture, their religion, their ethnicity, etc., and adapt your speech to their demographics. And of course, be in touch with the opinions and values of the audience that you're talking to. If you're talking to a golf audience, they're not going to be terribly interested in knowing about cooking. So the benefits of analyzing your audience is it provides you with an understanding of the audience's perception and views. You can craft the speech to match the audience, and you can avoid embarrassing or offensive references that they might find offensive. You certainly don't want an angry audience, so you always have to make sure you're aware of who your audience is. And you've got to anticipate response and prepare for any questions they might have at the end. Or, well, no, you don't want to have them talk during, answer the questions during the speech, because the speech won't flow. So you need to make sure you think about some of the questions people might have and have a question period afterwards. You can speak at the education level of the audience using their own language, whether it's a cultural difference or it's an educational difference. Sometimes you can really make a very boring speech if you have a college level researched speech to an audience who have never been to college. It is difficult for them to understand some of the terms you might use. So you need to make sure you keep your terms simplified depending on who your audience is. And is the speech going to be to inform, or is it going to be to persuade? So of course that also affects how and what you say during your speech, and whether or not you do the pros and cons, or if you debate yourself, etc. It is usually not common for a person to do both sides of an argument, so you need to make sure you're aware of what exactly you're trying to do with your speech. And of course, depending on the location, you have to prepare for the delivery settings. If it's indoors or outdoors, a small or a large audience, televised, a classroom, online or offline, these all have different issues for what they are, and you need to be able to prepare for the delivery and make sure that you have all the equipment you might need in order to be heard. So once you've written down the bones of your speech, once you've looked at your audience and what the goal of the speech is, then you have to think about the main elements of your speech. So of course there's an introduction, the main content, and the conclusion, and you've already looked at your audience and your goals and what you're going to do with the speech. So you have to acknowledge and thank the person who introduces you, thank the audience for attending. Starting with a story that illustrates or highlights the purpose of your speech will help you connect with the audience and establish your credentials to speak on the topic, or you can get the host to do a little introduction themselves, which they tell what your credentials are. So that is important, but especially the introduction is the hook. The reason that people want to listen to your speech. Is it going to be in a speech on something of interest to them? Then you need to be able to give them an idea of what you're going to say, and also maybe some controversy would help, or some introductory points. So you could acknowledge and thank obviously the people, thank the audience, establish your credentials. Yeah, we did that already. So if you start with a story or highlight the purpose of your speech at the beginning, that would help you connect with the audience, because they'll pay attention if it's of interest to them, if you tell them why they are here to listen to this speech. And so with the main content, of course, you have to establish the purpose of the speech, identify what you want them to do with the information provided, and you can say there are references. You can do some statistics and studies to get their interests, or case studies to get their interests, so they think, okay, yeah, maybe he's got a point or she's got a point. But yeah, you don't want to overwhelm them, but you need to give them some reason for being there. So some tips you can have for doing a good speech is find points that you want to pause. I'll pause here. Use anecdotes that cause the audience to reflect or consider the point, or you can use case studies. Include at least 3 key points and discuss the points from strongest to weakest point. And you could also state opposing arguments and obviously work on showing why those opposing arguments are not what you believe in. And of course, avoid cliches and use our or we as inclusive. And of course, that would always help with your speech. And so in the conclusion, you want to have a brief review of premises and points, address questions if appropriate, and address the call to action where you request them to perform the most wanted response. Whether that is showing enough interest in order to contact you, whether it's to buy something, etc. You need to have a call to action at the end so that they've paid attention to your speech, they've taken down some notes, and they know what next to do. So you thank the audience and allow time for questions. And of course, editing. When you're actually created the speech, you need to edit it and time it and practice it to see how long the speech will be. Because usually when you're asked to do a speech, the host should tell you how long they would like it to be. And so you need to be able to review and revise it and make smooth transitions and make sure the vocabulary matches the audience, and read it aloud to identify flaws or incongruities. Avoid acronyms and any type of marketing or technology lingo unless used to make a point, or your audience happens to be marketers and they all know what a funnel is. When I first started in this marketing exploration, I didn't know what they were talking about when they said funnel, because I've only used a funnel in cooking before. So I don't think you'll have too much trouble with writer's block because you already know what you're going to say, but you could always write it out as and about anything and look at pictures, take a meditation or exercise break and discuss the topic with a friend. Maybe doing that you'll understand more about what you're going to say. And practice the delivery of your speech in front of a mirror with a recorder or in front of your webcam. Look at your body language and other important details. Are you using too many ums and ahs? And practice in front of others, whether it's family or friends, and smile and be sincere while you're doing your practice section and see how it goes. And time it, of course, and so if it's too long, you're going to have to get rid of some of the extra fluff. So practice, practice, practice. So to get rid of the jitters, I know one of the worst fears of people is public speaking. But when you're asked, you obviously want to be able to do the speech. You just practice, practice, practice. So spend time rehearsing the speech to yourself. Vocalize the speech means less nerves at delivery. Use visual aids, slides, audio clips, videos, or flip charts to break up speaking points. Rehearse in the actual environment, rehearse in front of friends, perfect the timing, look at your timing and cut out anything you don't need, and dress like a professional and record it and see how comfortable you are knowing what you're doing with the speech. And tricks for audience engagement. Well, obviously, you need to be able to neutralize your body language. You need to look confident. You need to make eye contact with people. You need to use gestures. And you need to move around. But of course, you don't want to move around too much, making people nervous or hopefully hiding your nervousness, that kind of thing. So you need to be able to connect with the audience. And practice again and again and again, and do a video recording of your speech, and for anything you want to stop doing, and for the timing of the speech, since you've been asked for a certain time, you need to be able to know if you've made too many slides or not enough, or if you have enough to say for the time period that they want, or if you can put in some time for questions. Usually, of course, there's usually not too many questions. People are shy. So one of the good tips for doing a speech is figuring out some questions that you can ask them and they can answer back, rather than you waiting and just saying, are there any questions? So whether offline or online, the only way to improve your speech is by practicing. Practice, practice, practice. Giving speeches will give you more visibility, and of course, one of the things I won't bother to tell you or do anything on is you need a speaker one sheet, which tells any person who might be interested in having you to speak what you're about, what you've done, what you have available, what your stats are, etc. And you need to get out there if you want to be visible. So there you go. That's pretty obvious. So that was a speech on basically doing a speech. I know some of it's very basic, but then to be honest, some people don't even know about how to do a speech, because of course it's one of the scariest things to do for most people is a public speech, whether it's here, on the internet, or on offline. It's always scary, and I am aware of the many words that I mispronounced in this speech. So yes, just keep going. It's another thing you should do. So anyway, so I am going to try to get the Let's Take Action show started on Saturdays at 8 a.m. Pacific. And if you want to get information about that, I have two places you can sign up. You can go get my Profitable Show Kit at jane-gardner.com and sign up there, and you'll get the 7 steps to produce your first show, monetize your mic strategies, and 12 checklists for producing your show. Or you can just go to my regular jane-gardner.com/live and sign up there and get notifications about our next show. So, what's our next show? It was on to books and text and writing. The most basic of anything, which is writing, and how to get visible with your book and your writing, etc. So yeah, we're going on to one we should have started with, which was text. So see you next time.